Like, a lot has happened with Penn State in the last 2 weeks, and we got to get into it. There's the bowl situation, but when they had their media bowl announcement, after they announced they were going to play Florida, they had their sort of bowl press conference last week, and he comes out. One, Joe's got this horrible cold again. I could barely hear. He didn't seem very audible. But a couple guys on his staff, and I've heard some rumblings all year that there's some guys aren't as happy, or they're getting a little tired of the Joe way, maybe, and they usually keep everything very quiet up there. Well, you got the defensive coordinator and the linebackers coach both looking at jobs elsewhere. It tells me maybe there's a little bit of friction in-house right now. What are you taking from this?
I'm with you. A lot has happened, and thankfully so, because, these bowl games, other than one or two bowl games, they're really lame. And now a lot has happened to make this sort of compelling, this Outback Bowl, Penn State, Florida, sort of compelling. So I'm thankful for that as a guy who covers Penn State. But I think you're right. I think Penn State has gone through a period where the coaching staff was pretty settled, pretty stable, and now I think we're at the tipping point where it's gone from settled to stale a little bit. And Tom Bradley, we hear, has contacted Pitt about their opening. He did the contacting. He initiated it. Ball State is looking for a head coach, and supposedly Ron Vanderlinden is a candidate there, and he has been a college head coach. He was the head coach at Maryland before Ralph Friedgen, who's there now. So my sense all year is that the dynamic on the coaching staff has changed a little bit, and not in a good way. And when you factor that in with the increasing decline with Joe in his apparent faculties and ability to perceive things and his health. I don't want to read too much into that or draw too many conclusions about it, I guess, more than read too much into it. But, you talked about this. He said he had a cold. He also said, I've been nursing this thing for 6 weeks. Now, that's not just a cold. I mean, good Lord. It merits watching, and it is something that we're going to have to pay attention to over the next couple of weeks before we go to Florida for the big bowl game.
What's interesting was we only heard about these announcements. Now, granted, this could have been the running with these guys. Wannstedt loses his job at Pitt, and Bradley said, hey, I want to make a run at it. But I've heard some rumblings before that Bradley wasn't happy, and it was about the same time that Paterno made an announcement to a recruit that he's going to be coaching for another 5 or 6 years, where some of these guys on the staff says, whoa, we've been holding on too long. We're tired of this. So it tells me that maybe there's going to be some changes coming there soon. Now, let me talk to you about the matchup here. 7-5 Penn State versus 7-5 Florida. I still think it's a great matchup because Florida's still a great program. A lot of athletes. If you win this game, it's a great springboard for next year, the confidence you can build. But Florida's got a coach leaving also. They've got a lot to be playing for as well. The last game for Urban Meyer as well.
That really is going to be the bigger dynamic of this game is Urban Meyer and Muschamp's going to be the new coach there, who's an assistant at Texas. At least he doesn't have to deal with a bowl game over the next few weeks, so he can sort of get his feet wet. It's a strange thing. Florida was the line opened at 7, so Florida was a 7-point favorite. After the Urban Meyer thing came out, it went up a little bit. It's 7.5 now. So people seem to think that Florida is a pretty solid favorite in this game. Florida has been pretty, I almost said erratic, but I think people use that word too much. They've been pretty bad offensively and playing a bunch of different offenses, playing 3 different quarterbacks. So this is really even more than usual with the bowl game. This is way up in the air. As far as what actually happens on the football field, we got no idea what we're going to see in Tampa on New Year's Day.